Welcome to week 2 of the Map Battle League. This week I'll be facing off against Afi, who I apologize to if I mispronounced her name. The two maps we're going to be playing are Ireland and the South Korean city of Daegu. First up we have Ireland, which is essentially a home map for me as I did grow up there, even though I haven't lived there in a long time. So I do have high expectations going into it, and I'd like to see if I can get at least a reasonably high score on this one. So with that said, let's get right into it. Okay, so right off the bat you can tell we're in Dublin, as the buses are a pretty dead giveaway. On top of that though, the area does look fairly distinctive, and in a very convenient fashion, this actually happens to be a location that I've been to probably hundreds of times as a kid. So even without some of those signs, I probably would have figured it out very quickly. And looking around for a nice sign to pinpoint where we are, sure enough, there's a sign for the Coombe Hospital, which again, in convenient fashion, know very well just because I have family that was born there. So being able to zoom on that quite quickly. And now it's just a matter of pinpointing exactly where we are on the street, as we've already located the area we're in. Looking around for a few more signs, not really seeing anything too helpful. Remembering that we're on the junction there, seeing the church, it should be a decent indicator of where we can find it on the map. Still looking in the wrong spot. We should be looking for a bit bigger of an intersection. And there, finally take a look at some road signs. Dolphin's Barn, which is very helpful, and again, incredibly convenient because it just happens to be an area that I've been to a lot when I was younger. Still looking for it on the map though, taking a little more time than we should, but we've got time to spare, so there's really no rush here. South Circular Road, that'd be the cross section, so now we just gotta find where that is. And there we are, we should have seen it. There's Dolphin's Barn. Now we see South Circular Road. We found the intersection. So we'll just take a second to quickly pinpoint this. And sure enough, there it is. A little bit of a heart attack as the other icon spawned a little farther away, which gave a momentary pause where you think, did I really get it? No, yeah, we got the perfect score. So now moving on to round 2. On looks like a motorway, we're going to look down and find some kind of sign if we can. Thankfully, signs are pretty prolific around the area, so you don't have to go too far before you reach a decent sign that either has a major highway on it or at least a regional road, which are pretty well marked. And there it is, N22 Cork and Tralee. So we can go in on Cork right away and start to find the N22, which we've located. Now we're going to look for Ballincollig, and whichever the next one is here, if we can see it, that is Macroom. So we've seen Macroom. Now looking for Ballincollig, which you can see on the map now, but I haven't quite seen it quite yet, off to the east. I do know that it is more of an east-west road, at least the section that we're on, so I am looking for more horizontally oriented segments of the road that could match up to it. Although still looking a little bit farther west than I should at the moment, just based on the distances that we saw to the two towns. And we're going to go eastwards just to check what's around the corner and see if there's anything useful here. And there is a nice sign for Kilmurray on the L2002, which is going to be off to our south, so I'm going to take a quick look and see if we can find it. Nothing yet, though. Back to the start, we're going to head back the other way and go back to those initial signs that we saw. Go a little bit further, see if there's anything else that can help us out. And there's the same indicator to Kilmurray to the south. So we're now committed on finding that, because that's essentially going to tell us exactly where we are on the road. Looks like a good area we've just clicked in, only because there is a gas station, which is very helpful. And there, I see it now, Kilmurray. So we know that that's the area we're in, and that is in fact the gas station that we started. Now it's just a question of pinpointing it. Trying to line up the road here, although we do know we're in the right area already. And unfortunately, with about 10 seconds to go, in hindsight, I failed to recognize that little side road that the truck is in front of. In fact, we're directly in front of it, but I did misplace it a little bit off to the west, and as a result, we just missed out on a perfect score by about 3 points. So disappointing, but not that bad, because that's still pretty good for all things considered. All right, so straight away we can see a sign just off to our west, which is very nice. R395, and again, thankfully these regional roads are organized fairly well across the country, so if you do see a number in the high 300s, you can fairly quickly find out at least the region that's going to be in, as they are all clumped together pretty well. So we're just scanning through the west to see if we can find the right set of 300s. Found some 360s, we're close. There's a few 390s, so you must be very close. We see some 397s, 398s, so we're almost there. 394s, and there it is, 395. And we found Edgeworthstown as well. Looking for Granollers as well, so we can just triangulate it, and we see it up on the map a little bit to the north. Don't know if I've noticed it quite yet. Yes. And we're on, looks like close to the intersection of 395 and 396, so it is just a matter of pinning this down because we already are in the right spot. Nice curve on the road, which just helps us identify where we're at. And there we go, another nice intersection, and in fact that's the road that takes us up to Granard. Yeah, that looks nice. It looks like it matches up. We've got the 396 splitting off from the 395. We've got the bar there. So now we just need to backtrack and figure out exactly where we started. Yep, just confirming that that is the right place that we are. Orient the road a little bit because we're not that far off to the east. Looking for now the Montessori, which should be nearby. And sure enough, there it is. You can tell from the playgrounds, the little swing set and kids looking area. Just confirm that that is the Montessori, which we are convinced now. So slap the pin down and call it a day. And yes, that is a full 5,000 points for that round. All right, round 4. This is a little scary starting a neighborhood like this because some of these can be a bit tricky to get out of, as they can be quite maze-like as you're trying to find a main road. And unfortunately, as we go down this street, we are going to quickly realize that there isn't really an exit here. So we say, okay, cannot get out that way. Let's go back to the start and try the other direction. And unfortunately, immediately realize it's just a dead end as well. So a little bit of slight panic starts to set in as you realize, oh my gosh, can I even get out of here? But thankfully, we can just snap out to the main road, which really saved the day. And even better, we don't go very far down the road before we do see another sign here coming up. But either way, once we're on a more major road here, it's going to be not that long before we find a decent sign regardless. So there it is. And right away we can see, it looks like R448. So again, Kilkenny, we can narrow that down right away to the immediate area. Now it's just a question of finding the right roundabout, the right road, searching around to see if we can find 448. Yeah, this is the roundabout itself. Seeing if we can orient ourselves and find any more clues. Yep, 448 to Carlo. So we're going to be looking up to the northeast towards Carlo itself. And there is 448. So now we're just going to follow that and see if we can find a good roundabout that looks like it matches up with some neighborhoods nearby that we can snap into. We've got a minute left, and we haven't really found anything yet that quite matches up what we're looking for. So we're going to continue going down the road, see if there's anything else helpful. There's another sign, and we can confirm that we are on the 448 itself. And it confirms that Waterford and Kilkenny, for that matter, are still a decent ways off to the south. So we're going to continue looking north. There's a roundabout, seeing if that looks close, but it doesn't quite look right. We're going to have to keep looking with about 40 seconds left here. Another roundabout, but again, just doesn't quite look correct. And at this point, we're starting to think, let's look in Carlo itself, and yes, this looks a lot closer. There's a nice roundabout, and we do have neighborhoods nearby. We went southwards to get there, and in fact, yes, that road looks very close to what we started at. Let's just go back to the start and confirm, and yes, this looks almost identical, so we have found the right spot. Unfortunately, and this is a good lesson in hindsight here, spent a bit too much time messing around trying to get the angle of the road right when we already know where we are, and we should have been counting those houses right away, and with just a second too late, didn't get the pin down where I should have. So did lose about 4 points there when I should have gotten the perfect score, but you know what, that is still good enough. So we're going to move on to round 5. And this one is going to be a little trickier as we start in a more rural area, which can be a little deceptive on these maps because, you know, sometimes you don't go very far down the road before you do get a good sign and you get back onto a roadway. And here we do find a sign. Unfortunately, in some of these rural areas, not all of them will actually have a road number on them. And also with some of these rural roads, sometimes you just pick the wrong direction and you can go on for quite a while before you actually intersect with anything. So a little bit of luck involved. We do see a few more signs, but again, no actual numbers on them. Or in that case, there might be a number that we're looking at, but it's just too hard to make out. So I couldn't quite rely on it to actually look around. Now, the initial sign that we did say Clare Morris on it, which in my mind immediately slaps to County Clare, which would have been the first place I should have looked. And really, in most cases, I don't like to go into the map too soon because oftentimes with smaller towns, you can look around for ages and not really find it. But in this particular case, it would have been worth looking into it because as we'll see in a bit, it does pop up pretty prominently on the map when you get there. And I spent a lot of this round looking for something better to work with, or at least something with a road number sign that we can go off of. Unfortunately, nothing really came up. So a lot of the next minute and a half here is just going to be spent searching down roads for something that could be helpful, and it just never really comes to fruition. Whereas, easier to say in hindsight, but if I had looked at the map right away, I would have found this place a lot quicker. And we probably would have been able to pinpoint it, or at least get very close, given the time we would have left ourselves. But as it stands, we feel like, you know, it's better to keep looking, and maybe we will find something that we're looking for in the next minute, which is still a decent amount of time overall. Retracing some of our steps a little bit. And with about 45 seconds left, a little bit of panic is going to start setting in because we do realize that, oh no, if we don't find this sign pretty quickly, it's going to be pretty tough to find exactly where we're looking for. We might have to make a bit of a random guess, which after what has been a pretty solid game so far, would be really disappointing to just throw it down somewhere and have a high risk of getting very few points, depending on, you know, where it ends up. Now we're at the point where we realize, okay, very soon, yep, this sign is not going to help, so we're just have to go in and look. With about 12 seconds left, let's open the map. And sure enough, as soon as we zoom in, there's Claremorris. So we're immediately thinking, dang, I wish I had done that about a minute and a half ago, but you know what, at least we know where it is, and we see Knock at just the last second to the northeast as well, but it's too late, and all things considered, that's not bad. Could have been a lot better for how it went, but we'll take it. So 24,416 points. Overall, I'm pretty happy with it. I feel like I could have done better on that last round for sure if I had just gotten into the map a little sooner as just a cursory check, but not bad. Up next, we have Daegu. Pretty decent sized city overall, but thankfully there is really good signage around the area. So with a bit of practice, there are definitely some key spots that do show up on a lot of the major signs pretty frequently, and you can orient yourself pretty well in the city based on those. One of the big frustrations of this particular map, though, is a lot of the overlapping and disjointed coverage within the major roads themselves. So as you'll see, there is going to be a lot of times where the frustration boils down to trying to click forward through the roads and not being able to keep on a straight line or cutting off or jumping around and just trying to navigate around that, which can be frustrating. But right away, you know, we're on a pretty major road and we see some helpful signs telling us in general where we're at, but we're going to need something a little more specific, and that is helpful. We can see that Songso there is to our west, which is at a location that we are familiar with on the west side of the main highway there, and sure enough, right away we find the road. So now it's a question of finding some of these cross sections, which shouldn't be too far off to the east, which we're looking at right now. We can see we're at the intersection of Daegu and Duryugongwon, which look like two pretty major roads. And in fact, this should be enough to pinpoint it, but I am unfortunately not seeing it right away on the map. So still going to look around for a little bit longer, back to the same place. And you can even see decent enough size intersection that it does have some connecting roads on the corners, which should be a pretty dead giveaway because those will show up fairly prominently, but it's just not something I really put together right in the moment, which is unfortunate. But we go back to the start, and again, we realize we're on this major road, so it's got to be somewhere along Highway 30 there. Yeah, we're just going to place temporarily down a pin. That does look like the intersection that we are nearby, so at least that is something we have to work with, but some of the pieces are not all falling into place in my head at the moment because this should be enough to snap down right there. In fact, we have a crossroad, and all that is plenty of time with a minute left to be putting it down, but just not convinced at the moment that we got it. We're going to look for that crossroad, and I guess even though we had snapped down next to the intersection, it wasn't quite enough for me to be convinced that that was the right place. Dongsan Road, we can see, is another road here, which we are looking for, off to the west of where we started. Not quite seeing it. 20 seconds left, and we realize, oh no, we haven't really found a way to pinpoint it yet, and we're running out of time. Again, we know the general area we're at, so we're just going to have to throw a pin down, and unfortunately on a map like this, you really don't want to hope for the best, because even being off by a small bit can be catastrophic. But we see a road that's kind of facing off to the northeast, and hey, that looks pretty close to it, so we're going to put it down and see what happens. And sure enough, it actually happens to be the right place. So again, a little bit of a scare from the other marker, making it initially look like it wasn't there. But sometimes you need a little bit of luck on maps like this, and we will take what we can get. So we're going to take a second here and just decompress, because that was a little bit stressful with the time scramble at the end. But we're ready to go on to the next round here in just a moment. All right, so we're on another decent sized road right away, which is a good encouraging sign. Right away we get a good sign that should tell us roughly where we're at. Again, Wool Bay looks familiar, so we're going to go a little farther and see what else we can use to pinpoint it. And we see the sign for the family court, which is, like I mentioned, one of those spots that a lot of the signs in the city are going to point generally to, and we know it's in this area, so we can look to the south of that to see if we can find some of these crossroads. And pretty quickly we should find ourselves coming across the Wool Bay station. A good example of just struggling with the movement, as mentioned before, just trying to get out of these dead ends and overlapping routes that can be very frustrating and difficult to navigate through. And yeah, we're just stuck in a corner here, starting to get a little frustrated because we just want to move on, so we're going to give up and actually just go the other way. More signs. We know where that expressway is in the south. The stadium's not too far away, and there's a good intersection that we can look for. There's Wall-Base Station, and we see that we are in the right spot. That looks like the road we spawned on, and we did start near a curve, so we're just going to go back now and double check it, but we're pretty confident we found the right area. Just trying to find a nice crossroad that we can confirm with. And yes, there's a nice sign actually right by where we started. Unfortunately, due to the way the camera's jumping around, can't quite read it from that angle, and as soon as you get closer, but the letters look close enough that it does look like it matches up with Sengen Row there. So everything lines up, and we're just probably going to go for it in the end. But since we have 30 seconds left, we do want to just double check and be 100% sure before we lock it in. Lining up the road, and yeah, we're pretty certain about this now, so it's just a question of sending it. And there it is. So that's a good start with 2 perfect scores in a row, which is encouraging going forward. So we're going to see how long we can keep this rolling. Just going to gather ourselves for a little bit here, collect the nerves, take a breath. We know we're on good pace, so we do want to keep this up. All right, on to the next one now. We're feeling pretty confident. So right away, we're at a big intersection. I believe I saw Zhongyi on that sign, which again is a fairly major road that I've come across before. So I think I already have an idea of the general area where it's at, but we're going to need to look around a little more before we can really confirm this. So down the road we go, again, struggling with some of the movement in here. It's going to be a recurring theme. So we were in the wrong spot initially, but we have now found it. Again, it did look familiar. We just had to find the right place, but we found Zhongyi Row. Now all we need is the cross section, and I believe we have found it pretty quickly. Everything looks good. It's matching up. Just make sure we're on the right corner. And we'll go ahead and send it with that. Nice. So another 5,000. It's a good feeling. We're on a good pace. At this point, with 3 rounds down, I am pretty confident now that a perfect game is within the realm of possibility. So we are just taking our time. I'm going to collect ourselves here and just keep the nerves in check before we move on, because we know it is going to be possible to get this. All right, so on to round 4. Thankfully, not far from a major road right away. We can snap down there and begin immediately looking for some road signs that can tell us hopefully where we're at. Struggling to get out of this corner. Nope, just can't do it. Gonna have to rely on the arrows themselves. There we go, finally free. Oh, just to get into a dead end. Isn't this lovely? So very frustrating, just trying to move away from this initial starting spot, and we give up because that's not going to happen. So let's just go to the northeast instead. Hopefully we get better luck in this direction. Although it doesn't look too promising, as again, we're just having a hard time moving forward at this point. Oh, finally. All right, so a bit of freedom. We can actually move on and see if we can find something of value here. All right. Ayong, I have seen before. I believe it was somewhere near the airport up in the northeast part of the city. And those signs I do think are fairly common around that area and not too much elsewhere. So we immediately go in there and are going to scan around and see if we can see it. Daegu Station to the south as well, we have seen before. So we're going to go to that first and use that as a base to search around. And yes, there we can see the Ayongs. So now we just got to find the right road that we started off. It's just a small road that juts off to the north. And there it is. All this time, we had the sign right by where we started. Ayong Road, 21 Gil. So we're just going to go down the road until we see the right one. And there it is. So with a minute to spare, all we need to do now is just pinpoint this, which should not be too hard. Just going to use the buildings here and make sure we get the right spot. Double checking we are on the right road, but yes, this is the right place for sure. So we just want to make sure that we count the buildings correctly, line ourselves up in the right spot with relation to their corners. There's that long one just to our north, and I just want to make sure that is the one I'm looking at. Yeah. All right, so another 5,000. So 4 down, 1 to go. Starting to believe this is possible now. So we just want to collect ourselves again, and one more round. All we need to do is hold it together. So let's see where we end up once we're ready to go here. All right. Time to knock this last one out. So in we go. So right away, we're in a pretty dense cluster of smaller streets. And the question now is going to be, how do we get out of here and which is the right direction to go to get to a major road so we can get the idea of what area we're in. Hopefully we can see some street signs on some of these corners along the way so we can remember it down the road when we do need to pinpoint it exactly. But unfortunately, so far, nothing popping up yet. So we're going to keep going all the way down to the south. And dang, we get to this section and it's still not quite a major road. So we're going to go back to the start and try again, see if we can get out of here in a different direction. Heading south, no, just kind of more of these side streets. There's finally a sign. So we zoom on it. Okay, we're going to try to remember that for later. Another one. And now let's head north. Let's see if we can get out of this cluster, which it does look like we're about to. Oh, not quite. Well, yes, this is actually a major road, so this is good. So we just need to see if we can get a nearby crossroad. And we see the sign for the university, which is on the western end of town. So at least we know that that is to the west of us, and we have seen the rail stop for it. Or the bus stop, rather, whichever transit stop it is. So now we at least know that we're east of that area, not too far to the east. So we have a general place to work with. So now it's just a question of being able to narrow down where the intersection is and pinpoint it. Pyongyi Road, it looks like. So that is the east-west road we're going to look for. We've got under a minute left, and so we'd really like to find this because a perfect game would be nice. But with a city map like this, even being slightly off is going to lose you a lot of points, so we pretty much have to pinpoint it and find exactly where we're at to get the full score. Still looking for that east-west road. We see Songso, which we know is to our east now, so we're looking, or excuse me, to our west, so we're looking to the east of there. And now we're running out of time, and we haven't found these side streets exactly yet. So it's not looking optimistic. But with 15 seconds left, we're going to see if we can again find one of these signs that can help us at least pinpoint what cluster of side roads we're in. Daegu, it looks like. And with 2 seconds left, unfortunately, we haven't found it. So disappointing. The good news is we were not too far off. Still lost about 2,500 points, which is disappointing considering we were on pace for a perfect score there. So with 4 out of 5 rounds, it is a little heartbreaking to throw it away on the last one. But you know, there's the road. We see it now. Just couldn't quite close it out with the time given. Probably were enough signs to pinpoint it, so I think in the future it would have been better to do a better job there. But you know, all things considered, for that map, 4 out of 5 is not bad, and considering we didn't exactly find the right spot, still getting 2,500 points is not terrible for not actually pinpointing it. It could have been a lot worse. That was week 2 of the Map Battle League. Next week we'll be playing against Wakalok on 2 very different maps. The first one's going to be Andorra la Vella, which is the capital of Andorra, and we're also going to be playing on the Pacific Ocean map, which is a quite large area to cover, so we'll see how that goes. But they should be fun. Looking forward to it.